come from? Where were you born and where were you raised?
I was born in Superior, Arizona,
Okay.
born and raised there. My mother and my father came from Mexico in 1920.
Wow.
They, my dad was a miner. He was raising his family, and my dad got very sick and died very young. There was 8 of us in the family, and my mother struggled to raise us up. When we started school, we were all speaking Spanish. We didn't know English. It was a Spanish-speaking neighborhood, and we grew up with Spanish. We didn't know any English when we went to school, and we were afraid. I mean, I was afraid because so many people that I had never seen so many people before, and everybody was talking English. I didn't understand it, and there was a rule there. They had a rule in the school that if you were caught talking Spanish, you would be paddled. I was caught talking Spanish. I said 3 words in Spanish. I dropped my pencil and I said, "Ese es mi lápiz." That is my pencil. And then the PE teacher said, "Who said that?" And I was honest to say that it was me. So I said it. It was me. And he dragged me over to the closet and paddled me.
Oh my gosh.
The next day I didn't go to school. When I started school, the 1A class was for white kids.
Okay.
And the 1B was for Mexican kids. It was segregated.
Like that.
Segregated. There was a school west of town for Hispanics. And most of the Hispanics in town were sent to the Harding School. And that was for Hispanics. Since I lived near the Roosevelt School, some of us lived near the Roosevelt School, and they didn't send us down there because being that we lived closer to the school. But some of them lived far away. Yeah, the 1A, white, and 1B, Hispanics. In the theater, a certain hour for whites and then a certain hour for Hispanics.
Really?
The swimming pool also was segregated.
Wow. At your school, was there mostly Hispanics? Was there Hispanics and whites, Hispanics and blacks? What was kind of the mix of students, if you could remember?
In the Roosevelt School, there were no black people.
No?
No, that I can remember. No, there wasn't any. And they didn't live there in Superior either.
Yeah.
It was Spanish and it was Hispanics and white. And you went out of town, like here in the valley, and you did see blacks, whites, and Hispanics all in schools, you know.
But up there, it was still pretty segregated.
And that was segregated also.
Yeah.
Then until the civil rights came in, and they started fighting back, but it's still not there.
No.
So then I went on to the 8th grade. I graduated from the 8th grade. I didn't have enough money to go to high school for buying books, clothes, and shoes, or whatever you needed. So I just decided to work. I started working very young. And the school was very segregated.
Really?
Very segregated. If you said any Spanish word, the other kid would hear you, and they would tell the teacher, he was talking Spanish, you know. So then I didn't go to high school
Mm-hmm.
because the same thing was going to happen there, I figured,
Yeah.
which it did happen to some. And I just dedicated myself to work. And I started working very young.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a grocery store delivering groceries.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a job in a mine. And I worked 2 years for the mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to go to the Navy and travel some. I had never been anywhere.
Yeah.
I got in the Navy and did everything that was required,
Mm-hmm.
and I passed everything. And I went aboard a destroyer ship,
Mm-hmm.
and I traveled a lot. I traveled to the South Pacific Islands of the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
Australia, the Far East, Hong Kong, Japan,
Wow.
Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
Fiji Islands, and China,
Mm-hmm.
and did a lot of training out at sea. I just kept on working. I married Terry Ramirez, my wife now.
Mm-hmm.
We have been married for 53 years.
Wow.
And we raised our family in Superior. We built our own house.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have a problem
Mm-hmm.
getting money to build our house. The banks wouldn't let Hispanics money
Oh.
to buy land
Yeah.
or for construction of a house.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in the mine. I would get out of the work at the mine
Mm-hmm.
and go and work on the house. I had 3 jobs.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Working at the mine,
Mm-hmm.
raising the family,
Mhm.
and Terry helped me a lot. I mean, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
her also, and we did it. We built her house.
Yep.
It turned out very nice.
Yep. Still standing. You did something right.
Mhm. And I can really say
Mhm.
that really I should have got more education, but I couldn't. Like I say, there was no money. Didn't have any money for anything. But even though we didn't have that much of a knowledge, I read some books, plumbing, carpentry,
Mhm.
and I learned how to read in school. That's one thing I did.
Yeah.
Learn how to read. I had a good teacher for reading. And that helped me
Mhm.
when we built the house. It helped me reading the books for foundations and electrical, plumbing, whatever.
Yeah.
And it also helped me when I went in the Navy. I knew how to read.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't have a high education, but I figure that I did it my way.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And it worked out. And up to now, we've done things our way.
Yeah.
We just continue.
Mm-hmm.
We continue on living. And I can see now what's going on in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when I went, but there's one thing. The kids nowadays are afraid of the guns. It
Yes.
shouldn't be that way.
No.
It should not be that way.
Nope.
No guns. And I feel afraid for the kids nowadays,
Yeah.
When I went, there were no guns in school.
Oh.
You got paddled, but they didn't kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
But now, kids are being killed in school
Mhm.
with war weapons.
Yeah.
War weapons shouldn't be sold out there.
Mm-mm.
Those weapons are for war,
Yep.
not for killing kids.
Yeah.
And what I can see also is segregation will never end. It will never end.
Yeah.
what I read in the papers and what I see in the news, I observe it, and I think back then and now, and it hasn't gone away. It's still there.
What are your views about education now?
Education now is better for the kids than when I went.
Mm-hmm.
The kids have more benefits in school. They have computers.
Yeah.
They have those tablets,
Mm-hmm.
and they have teachers that are teaching the computer work, which is in the modern world now.
Yeah.
And that is a very good thing that there is now for the kids.
Yeah.
And I can see that it's a better education for them. It helps them.
Mm-hmm.
It really helps them. When I went, there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
But now the kids they even have lunch at school, which we didn't.
Really? That's right.
We didn't have lunch at school.
Uh-huh.
We had to go home for some kids took lunch, and I didn't live far from the school, but I went home for a bite to eat, and
Mm-hmm.
some kids took tortillas in their pockets.
Did you do that sometimes?
Yeah.
Hey, you need a snack.
Yeah, I ate.
Yeah, you survived.
You survived. There's always a way.
There's always a way.
Okay, I was born in Jerome, Arizona.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I was there till it was a mining town.
Mhm.
Lived with my mom and dad. And when the mine shut down, my dad got a job in Superior, and that's when I ended up growing up in Superior, Arizona.
What do you culturally identify as?
Hispanic.
Okay. What's the highest level of schooling you've completed?
High school,
Mhm.
and did go to cosmetology. Had some computer classes, and still trying to learn stuff.
Always learning.
Always.
Did you attend cosmetology school while you were in high school, or was that after high school?
After high school, I got a scholarship to go to cosmetology.
And that was also in Superior?
No, I went to, that's when I moved down to Mesa it was 5 of us girls that got one that we applied for, and we all got it, and we all lived in a little cottage, and we split the rent, and we all would walk to the beauty school, and it was not far.
In elementary school, did you start in preschool or kindergarten or first grade?
They had the 1A and 1B, which I didn't quite understand then.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they held me back, my mom questioned it because I had A's and B's.
Yeah.
And usually the group from the group from Jerome that moved to Superior were being held back.
Mm-hmm.
So the families, my mom got together with the other women from Jerome,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought it up to the principal and asking them why, when we're all Hispanics being held back,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the whites were being passed, and they all had F's and D's.
Mm.
So that's when they complained. So they said, why don't you take them to Florence and have them retested? And that's when we all got retested, and we all passed, and the ones that failed.
Mm. Even though they said you guys weren't passing.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your school was segregated?
Yes. And some of it wasn't as far as a lot of the kids would get along, but it's sad. But the teachers were kind of were causing the segregation
And the racism, right?
racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was mostly Hispanic and whites demographic at your school?
Yeah, and then there was Indians, and there was Asians, and like the Asians, they owned the grocery stores. Their parents owned the grocery stores of Superior. The Indians, well, they were more to themselves, but they're all good people. I mean, as far as that, we never had trouble with them.
You guys all got along, especially as kids.
Kids, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you experience any racism at your school other than the segregation that was there? And is there like a specific experience that you remember off the top of your head that really stuck with you?
Well, like in the first grade, and then they decided to change the procedure from 1AA to 1B to the regular after all that processing of testing. They changed it from first, second, and third, and then later on in the years they started having preschool and all this other stuff to educate the kids. Yeah,
that came a lot later then.
Yeah.
Were you allowed to speak Spanish?
No, not in school.
Really?
Not in the school, but we would behind their back.
What was do you remember their reasoning for them saying you couldn't?
I guess they felt we were talking about them.
Really?
Yeah. The teachers that don't understand Spanish. So.
So English, was it your first language?
It was, my first language was actually both, because my mom and dad spoke English and my grandparents spoke Spanish. So I was raised with both languages.
When you went to school, did you feel like you learned well because of the language barrier, or did you seem to learn okay just in English?
I seem to learn okay in English. Yeah, because I mean, as far as I think it wasn't so much segregation. Maybe we could have learned a lot more, as far as in schooling and all that stuff. But as far as people-wise, it was okay.
Yeah.
Some of it, the kids-wise.
Yeah, the learning-wise was what was hard. When you would speak Spanish, what would they do?
The teachers, you mean? Like I said, I guess they felt that we were talking about them. And but a lot of them, like I had some Hispanic teachers, and they just say, "Okay, you guys cut it out. We know." They understand. They would understand, or something. But we knew when to draw the limit.
Yeah. Would they punish you in any way?
Not me. Maybe some of the boys. Something. They would. It was usually boys that got in more trouble.
Was there still corporal punishment, like discipline, like paddling or getting hit, or?
As far as I know, they did have it, but I was never involved in
Never
that.
you.
I wasn't involved in that part. So.
Was there a sense of community with the students in your schools?
Yeah, there was. They had, and there wasn't really much activities going in that school either. I mean, other than football, volleyball, or softball, or whatever. But they don't have activities like they do now. Over here, they have a lot more. Now this generations have a lot more for the kids.
A lot more things.
Yeah, and they didn't have no music, other than if you took a class there at school, they had music, or they had classes of ballet, but some parents just couldn't afford it. The kids for ballet or something like that. So.
Yeah. And what are your views about education now?
Education is very important to get along in life now, the way things are going. And the way the economy and everything's going, I think it's a must for everybody to get by in life, to survive in life now. So, but it is important, and I recommend it for all. As much as a person wants to learn, the better.
Okay. What do you culturally identify as?
Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Yeah.
What's the highest level of schooling that you've completed?
12th grade.
The 12th grade. Why did you stop attending at this level of schooling?
I lived with my grandmother, and so it was kind of hard for us financially, and we didn't really know a lot and what avenues to take and stuff like that. So we didn't really have a college in our town per se, and we didn't really have the means to move forward with it.
Okay. So thinking back to elementary school, middle school, high school, do you have fond memories of your school and your experience with people like you and your classmates and your teachers?
Yeah, we all grew up like brothers and sisters, because I think I started, I want to say like 2nd grade all the way to high school. We had, all of us were the same, so one thing is when I joined the band in the 5th grade, that was kind of special because we all grew up together all the way to the 12th grade, and we all kind of depended on each other for our performances and stuff like that. So that was a kind of a special bond, and those people, those classmates are kind of a tighter bond, I guess.
What kind of demographic was your school? Was it mostly Hispanic? Was it mostly whites?
I would say about 90% Hispanics, 10% white, and I don't remember black or Asian in my school. We're just from a small town. Yeah.
Did you experience any kind of racism in school, or is there any experiences that you specifically remember going through?
Not necessarily in school, because we were all majority Hispanic. You know, our families, our moms, dads, and you know, everything that came with it, the food, the music, and everything, right? I didn't experience probably a racism incident until I was older, when we went into a small town, and we walked into a cafe, and me and my helper happened to be black, and when we walked in, the whole cafe stopped, and it was a eerie feeling, and I felt really bad for my helper, and we ended up just leaving. You know, even though we were hungry, you know, we just left because it was pretty sad, and I kept telling my helper I was sorry that he had to go through that. You know, so that wasn't cool.
And how did those types of experiences make you feel?
Well, I guess people grow up the way they grow up. You know, kind of segregated, I guess, when you're not in the right area that you're, you know, not supposed to generally, the area you're not supposed to be in, but I guess people live differently in different areas. So when you go into a different area, you know, it's just seems like people treat you different or look at you different, and unfortunately, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Was your school segregated? Or did it at least feel segregated if it wasn't?
No, not really. No, because we're all Hispanics in our little town. We had another high school, though, our rival high school, and they were mostly Caucasian, and so you could tell the difference between what they had and what we didn't. Their school band was like 130 people, and ours was like 35 people. So when we play a halftime show together, they blow us out of the water. But we went with everything we had.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, you could see the difference there.
Between the schools.
Right, between the schools. But we had red enchiladas in our school, so I was cool with that.
Yeah. And were you allowed to speak Spanish in school, I assume? Was it normal for kids to speak Spanish in school? Did teachers speak Spanish to you guys in school?
We spoke mostly Spanglish, Spanish and English, because I think our upbringing was kind of like that. You know, we went from 80s rock music to Little Joe and La Familia and everything in between. So that was nice because we're a mixed culture. You know what I mean? So it was never boring.
And was there a sense of community with Chicano students in your school? Did you guys all feel pretty tight-knit?
Yeah, we were like family, especially because we all grew up together. If something like unfortunate happened to, you know, one of our classmates or something, you know, we were all there for each other no matter what. You know, and it really didn't matter if you were brown, white, whoever. You know, we were just a tight community like that. So.
Nice. And lastly, what are your views about education now?
Education now, to me personally, I feel it's really confusing. I think it's really confusing when you're trying to find a direction or how are you going to pay for your tuition, you know, everything that comes with it. And seeing you go through your years of college, you know, and thank God Mom understands a lot. I just feel like it's really confusing. It's really hard to find help when needed, you know, or the answers that you need and stuff like that. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. What do you culturally identify as?
I culturally identify as Hispanic American, Chicana.
And you always have?
Always have.
What's the highest level of schooling that you've completed?
I completed my associate's degree through Pima Community College in fashion design.
Nice. Why did you stop attending at this level of schooling?
Well, I did transfer to the University of Arizona into their retailing fashion, whatever their degree was at the time. This was the 80s, 90s. But it was really difficult trying to pay for each semester, navigating it all alone. I didn't have anybody to guide me. I didn't know where the buildings were, how to get to classes. And it wasn't like I was really helped by anybody, even if I asked for help. I would show up for office hours or things like that, and magically they wouldn't be there.
Great.
They would have served everybody else, but not me. So at some point I realized that it wasn't worth spending that kind of money to struggle. So I just said, maybe later on, and my heart wasn't in it for retail. I'm more of a creative person.
So back thinking in maybe elementary school, middle school, high school, do you have fond memories of your school and your experience with people like you and your classmates and your teachers?
I think, in every educational system, there's good teachers, there's bad teachers. Wherever you go, there's lazy teachers, and there's those teachers that give it their all. I grew up with all of these people I grew up with. We grew up like brothers and sisters. So we were so small. I graduated with 49 people in my class.
From where?
Superior High School. So, we started out with 100, but by the time we graduated, and maybe we had more than that when I was younger than high school, but by the time we graduated with 49. So we grew up like brothers and sisters. We saw each other every year. We went to the same schools every year. We saw each other at the pool in the summer. I mean, it was a lot of community and we all loved each other like brothers and sisters. We did.
Nice. So what was your main demographic of your school, if you could remember, maybe of high school?
High school, I think we were all, 95, maybe 98% Hispanic. We're a small mining town. Superior, Arizona is very small. It's, and at the time it was dwindling little by little, even though it was a major mining town at some point. And about the time I was in high school, that's when the mine closed. But, it was, I'm going to say 98, 99% Hispanic. The rest, we had some whites. Usually white kids were the teachers' kids, or, maybe their parents worked in the mine and they were, managers, bosses, whatnot. And we had one black kid who grew up very Hispanic. He even had a very Hispanic name. His name was Martin. And he had a last name too. I mean, I don't want to out him, but he was the only black kid for the longest time. So yeah, that was our community, and so I think that's why I was kind of drawn to Tucson.
So did you remember, or do you have any certain experiences where you experienced racism in school?
I think, I experienced racism, whether it was within the culture or even outside of our culture through, teachers or aides or whatever it was. I mean, a lot of our teachers were Hispanic, but if you didn't have that specific look, or you didn't brown nose up to them or something like that, then maybe you weren't as well liked. There were really good teachers there, don't get me wrong. There were some that really changed my outlook on life. I had one woman, her name was Mrs. Chambers, I'll never forget her, a white woman. She's the one who got me to read, and read really well. She would give me a new book every single week, and to the point where she couldn't give me books anymore because she got me so involved in reading. I think that's what helped me get through my education, of course. But then you had those teachers where you thought, oh gosh, I don't even want to go in there because she hates me or whatever it was. And then I would watch my brother go through that as well because he had a learning disability. So watching him struggle with teachers who treated him badly because he had a struggle, that was hard. And not being able to stick up for him like I wanted to, or watching my mom trying to do that. So yes, there was a lot of racism, and also, I don't know what you would call that type where somebody hasn't had been diagnosed, but they treat them differently because they're different. So yes, I experienced that there. I experienced that everywhere I went, at Pima Community College, at the University of Arizona, and then when I was trying to get you through school.
Yes,
I fought for you every day.
How did those experiences make you feel when you were growing up?
Of course, they always want you to feel less than. They want you to feel like you aren't smart enough, or you aren't fast enough, or whatever it was at the moment, right? But I had to keep telling myself that they just didn't know me. And even when I went to the counselor to try and get some information about college, she just kind of blew me off. She's like, oh, are you sure you want to do that? I don't know much about Pima. Why would you want to go there? I had one woman who was the person who taught sewing, and that's who got me into my degree interest. And she's the one who helped me with my application. She's the one who helped me figure out if that was the best thing for me. Helped me try. This was before Google, so you couldn't look things up. You actually had to write, or you had to make phone calls to find out, well, what can I do at these schools. The counselor dragged her, you know what, to try and help me, and she never really did. And when she finally asked me at the end of the year, my senior year, oh, did you ever get that information? I said, yes, all by myself, thanks very much. But she didn't have a problem helping all the other kids that were maybe in the top 10. I don't remember where I ranked, but the top 10 of the class. And nobody ever helped me figure out how to apply for scholarships. So that was all in our own time, going to Pima. And the same thing happened when I went to U of A. Nobody ever said, hey, you might qualify for a scholarship. You need some help? Nothing. I had no idea. So maybe I could have finished if I would have had a little assistance. But here I am now. I mean, it's neither here nor there. Things have changed, and I'm sure not in fashion right now.
Were your schools ever segregated, or if they weren't actually segregated, did they ever feel segregated?
No, they weren't segregated. I don't think you could, with the kind of demographic we had, we were everywhere. I don't believe that we were segregated even in class. They always made it a point to. The only segregation we had was good kids, bad kids. If you're a good kid, you kind of got put at the front, or maybe in the back to settle down the bad kids. But it wasn't necessarily based on color.
Got it. So was there a sense of community with the Chicano students in your schools?
I think there was, especially when it came to rivalries, when it came to games and things like that with football and basketball or whatever it was. And of course we would stick up for each other when it came to it, even when it was maybe a bully within the school. We stuck up for each other. So I think so. I still miss all of them, and I still consider them friends. I can't imagine of not doing that and being around them, because I think we all shaped each other.
Nice. When you were in school, were you allowed to speak Spanish? Was it encouraged? Did your teachers speak Spanish?
So this is funny. As we came into the 80s and universities and colleges started having a additional language become a requirement, then they started teaching it more. And I want to say they probably did that starting since the early 80s. So we did have Spanish class. It wasn't a requirement for us. I believe they had maybe French or something like that, but we weren't yelled at if we spoke Spanish, or most of us don't, and I'm going to tell you why. Because our parents were, disciplined for speaking Spanish, they didn't teach us. They wanted us to be assimilated as much as possible, speak English as much as possible, speak it well, so that we wouldn't go through what they went through. So I'm a different kind of Hispanic, because I understood the language really well. I don't speak it as much as I should probably. I can, but it wasn't something that my parents had reinforced, because both of them went through discrimination because of it. And my dad especially, he was disciplined for even speaking, and he was hit. He was, yelled at and whatnot for speaking Spanish. So that's the difference.
So last question, what are your views about education now?
Education now. Well, it's been difficult, I think. I think the teachers have a hard job. I do. I think there's a lot of parents who don't help out when it comes to teaching their kids at home. It is a whole familial type of job. You can't just expect to send your kids to school and they're going to learn everything there. You know, I started teaching you in the car before you could even, you had just learned how to speak. I started teaching you different things because I knew that I started telling you, you're going to have to start school pretty soon. And I used to tell you, you're going to go to kindergarten, and I would explain it. But I always told you that you were the material to go to college, and that not to think that school was going to be over when you graduated high school. And I started telling you that when you were like 3 years old, because I wanted you to know that it was an expectation. And as a parent, I was going to help you get there. That's my job. And I think a lot of parents want the school system to do that for them. And it's hard. There's so many kids in the classroom that a lot of them have a lot of learning disabilities and or behavioral issues. So they're dealing with all these things and they can't even get down to the teaching. I know it's hard for some parents though, who don't necessarily have the skill set when it comes to computers now, or understanding that all the different types of math that they can't just teach the one way for some reason. And I think that's hard for parents. So they try and give their encouragement as well. I think it's a give and take on both sides of it. The educational system now I'm seeing is still very much discriminatory. I face that a lot with you. I face that with Christopher, your brother, where they would always lean on the side that it was you that had to have done something wrong. It couldn't have been the teacher. It couldn't have been, and other students. It couldn't have been who knows what, right? But all in all, because I learned how to figure out the system and fight through that system and get right to the principal if I needed to, that's how I did that. And even at your struggles with U of A, this has been very, very hard for me to sit back and let you as an adult navigate that. That's been really difficult. All of the discriminatory factors that you have faced with the College of Education and in the early childhood program, that has been very difficult for me to sit back and watch that happen. And me working for that entity for as many years as I have, for 24 years now, and I had high expectations. I really did. I was expecting that you were going to get this wonderful education. And instead, you got so many doors slammed in your face. You were told you couldn't do so many different things. And at the same time, Anglos, white kids were given opportunities that you could never get in the University of Arizona today in 2023. And I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with the whole college. I'm disgusted with their administration. I'm disgusted with the way they've handled the whole situation. I am not really happy with the way that the Office of Institutional Equity handled this. And I am very, very disheartened. And I think about all the students that might be going through the same thing. And maybe they don't have parents who understand it all or can help them navigate that. And I wonder how many have left because of it. How many have left opportunities that were opened up to them and then slammed on them because they were Hispanic or because they didn't look like Karen next door. And I'm just really disheartened by all of that. It has really changed my focus on how I help students, especially ones that seem to not get the services that they need. And I've been trying to focus more on that than just trying to, as silly as it sounds, trying to be equal, because I know it's not equal. And I know that there's some students who get left behind.
What do you culturally identify as?
Chicana.
What is the highest level of schooling you've completed?
I'm currently finishing my bachelor's in education at the University of Arizona.
Thinking back to grade school, do you have any fond memories of school and your experiences with people like classmates and teachers?
Yeah, of course I had a lot of good memories. I also had my fair share of not so fun memories with students, with more of the bullying and then the teachers not understanding the bullying, therefore not being helpful. But overall, it was a good experience.
What kind of demographic were your schools?
Predominantly white, I would say 90% white, and then the other 10% just a mix of minority. Within the minority group, probably a little bit heavier Hispanic and Black.
Did you experience any racism in school, or do you remember any specific experiences you'd like to share?
Yes, I did experience racism in school from both students and teachers, which is very unfortunate. Going to a predominantly white school as a Hispanic individual, I think what happened was that a lot of those kids probably hadn't had any exposure to different cultures, therefore they didn't understand them, and neither did the teachers or even the parents. So I think what had happened is that they just didn't understand it, therefore they, as kids do, made fun of it. And I had a really hard time with that. I had a really hard time with comments about my skin color or comments about my hair, just the way I looked or the way I interacted with people. And teachers as well, I had a lot of what they would call now as microaggressions occur. Some stuff that affected my grade at some point. Things just affected my overall educational experience. Some things that just you couldn't really say was straight out racism, but you knew what it was because it didn't happen to anyone else but the brown kid, right? So I did have a lot of that, unfortunately.
And how did those experiences make you feel?
Not happy, that's for sure. It was just very disheartening. I used to not want to go to school a lot. I used to fight with my mom about going to school in the mornings. I would cry and cry and cry on the way to school in the car. And she used to have to pep talk me about, hey, you're going to be strong. It's going to be a good day. If anyone picks on you, call me. We'll figure it out. It was really hard. And after a while, you get used to it and you get used to what they say, or you come up with new comebacks. So I think up until high school is when I had, a really hard time. And then by high school, I had kind of just gotten used to it a little bit,
Was there a sense of community with Chicano students in your school?
Definitely. Maybe not so much when I was younger, and especially not in middle school, but in high school there definitely was. I went to school with, some other Chicano, Mexican, Latino students, and we all had a really good friend group. We all knew each other. We kind of looked out for each other. We didn't grow up together, most of us, but we still took care of each other like brothers and sisters. And, it was really fun. It kept you going through the times where you needed it, or, you didn't feel understood by anyone else at school or any of their teachers at school. So, yeah, I did, and it was nice.
Was your school segregated, or did it feel segregated?
So not segregated. At times it did feel segregated, just in the sense that maybe they didn't split us up by color or even, ability grouping, if smart kids versus maybe struggling kids. But there were times where you've kind of felt it almost just in the environment, in the air. You still felt like the odd one out. Our group, our Chicano little group, we always felt like the odd ones out. We always felt like we didn't belong, like we were just going to school, but it wasn't our school. Does that make sense? So not 100%, but in a lot of ways, kind of, yes.
Were you allowed to speak Spanish?
Yes, yeah.
Did any of the teachers speak Spanish at the school?
No, and you're not allowed to teach in Spanish. I know that's something I've learned over my experience learning about education in Arizona. There wasn't many Hispanic teachers. I don't think I've ever had a Hispanic teacher. I think I've only ever had like one or two teachers that would be considered, a minority, part of the minority group, but No, other than that, no teacher spoke Spanish. No teachers even knew Spanish. Even our Spanish teachers barely knew Spanish, and they're just learning out of the book like we were, you know?
So, what are your views about education now?
I think education is extremely important, whether it's education to advance a career, education at the college, university level, or just education on your day-to-day basis. Just regular knowledge about something you love. I think that it makes an individual, well-rounded, and you learn a lot more than just the academics of a subject or a degree or as even a certification or license. But a college degree isn't for everyone. There's other ways to go about it, like vocational schools, trade schools, certifications, licenses, things like that as well. So it's not just at the college and university level that education matters. I think it's unfortunate that racism still occurs now, 2023, at the university level. I know that's something that I've experienced myself within these past 4 years. Even at the University of Arizona, going through such a hard time, College of Education, dealing with things like microaggressions and just plain racism, and trying to figure out how to manage those experiences and your academic experiences and your social experiences, and trying to keep it all together and still hold a shred of sanity. I also think that there's not enough support. I know there's support out there, maybe support groups or come hang out, and there's going to be therapy dogs or things like that, but there's no true backbone of support, especially for things such as financial aid, reporting racist and discrimination, issues, even sexual assault issues. We do not have any backbone to that, and it's very disheartening to try and figure it all out, to try and figure out who to talk to about the right topics, how to get the money that you need, how to get the mental health support that you need. It's been very difficult, and I can only imagine how hard it is for other students who don't have familial support or even academic support, like academic advisors or just friends, family, anything. I can only imagine that that's extremely difficult. And overall, I just think that it's very important, and I thank my family so much for utilizing their education and their skills that they had to build up our family to get me to where I am now. I know, being a first-generation student, I feel so grateful to be at this level, to be graduating in just a couple of weeks now. I know that that's something that is very meaningful just for a lot of things, especially for my grandparents who did not get these experiences, who did not get to attend college, for my parents who didn't get to, finish and things like that. So yeah, I am grateful that I've had these opportunities, and I hope to use them to strengthen myself, educate myself, and strengthen my community.